Welcome, 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 Immigrant Nation. Another week, another new episode. I am Aaron Eliosa, and this is an Immigrant's Life podcast. An Immigrant's Life on all the social media. Our email also is at animmigrantslife@yahoo.com. If you want to reach out, if you want to say anything, or if you want to come on as a guest, that's the best way to reach out and contact us. As I'm recording this introduction, today is Canada Day, and I went on a bike ride earlier, and I was just thinking about this day and this celebration, and how I'm grateful to Canada for allowing me to achieve all my childhood dreams and everything else. I'm so grateful for this land and all the things that it has given me, the opportunities, and everything else that comes with it. So, for Canada, happy Canada Day. That's the personal side of things. Now, let's talk about this week's episode. This week's guest joined us to discuss her podcast inspired by her personal battle with anxiety and her commitment to fostering open conversations about mental health. She candidly addresses the complexities of familiar expectation as an immigrant, sharing how her parents initially struggled to grasp mental health issues. She also highlights the isolating nature of anxiety and stresses, the significance of destigmatizing these conversations. Additionally, she reflects on her journey towards healthier social media use, offering insight into navigating and overcoming toxic online environments. I'm telling you right now, I'm not anxious for you to listen to this episode. I'm actually excited because it was an illuminating conversation with an enlightening individual. So let's not waste more time. Without further ado, let's get into the show. Isa, dalawa, tatlo. Today's guest is a social media manager that is tackling anxiety one letter at a time through her podcast. A is for anxious. Everyone, please welcome Alyx Ang.
Thank you so much. Oh, that was a really nice intro.
Really?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you. I
like that.
appreciate that. I always talk about this, and it's my favorite part of the podcast.
Yeah, it sounds like a sports announcer, kind of.
I don't know about that, but it's like I spend time crafting the intro
Yeah, I like that.
specifically for the guest, and I just enjoy it. I love when the guest appreciates it. I love that.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Yes, excited to be here.
Of course. Why don't you tell the Immigrant Nation where they can reach you, or if you want to promote anything?
Yeah, you could reach me through, I'm mostly active on Instagram. So my Instagram is just my name, Alexandria Ang, but Alyx. And then you can also reach me on YouTube. But then, like you said, my podcast as well, A is for Anxious. We are almost finished with season 1. So we're going to be doing season 2, which is really exciting. So
Amazing, amazing. I love your podcast. I love the idea of it. The alphabet.
yeah,
And then
thank
you're
you
like,
so
okay,
much.
A is for anxious, a B for
Yeah.
I forgot the B. But
Yeah.
I just love it. How did you come up with the idea?
Oh, that's so it actually came from, it wasn't just like a podcast idea. I have a notebook where I write down things that I'm anxious about. Whenever I'm anxious about something, I sort of write it down, like diary entries. And so I just have a whole collection of like letters and certain words, right? Like random words. Like I'm anxious of like bridges, right? So like I remember when I was in the car one day and I had my notebook, I wrote that down. So that's kind of how the idea came for the podcast, starting to talk about that. But what came later was me deciding to have guests on the podcast.
So originally you didn't want a guest.
No, I didn't know how to do it. Like I didn't know we could, because I didn't know we could use Zoom. Like I thought you had, and then just the idea made me more anxious. I was just like, do I want to talk to people? I'm really like introverted. I'm like, do I want to talk to people every week for my podcast? But I think it just came naturally, as obviously I don't have anxieties for every letter of the alphabet, I could force it, but it wouldn't be real.
Yeah, I guess so. But I love that. So originally you weren't thinking of having guests, but eventually you open up and you said that you're gonna have guests. What
Mhm.
made you decide that okay, I'm gonna be brave, I'm gonna do this?
Actually, it was people asking me to be on the podcast. So I released the first episode, A's for Anxious, and and you'll be surprised to believe that from that first episode, I didn't even think of having guests on the next ones, right? And then people started asking me, they're like, "Oh my God, I have such a good one for letter T," and I'm like, "Oh, then why don't you come here and talk about it? Less work for me."
That's amazing. I love
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
I love the first episode and the second episode actually. I listened to some of them, but those first two ones are like my
Mhm.
favorite ones. Obviously because of learning something from you, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Were you afraid opening up, getting on the microphone? Because I know one of the episodes you said like I'm more comfortable in front of the camera rather than in my room in the dark in front of the microphone.
Yeah, I have never filmed a podcast before, and the thing about filming a YouTube video or getting on Instagram and filming your face, it feels like you're acting, you know? Like some part of that is like you can control your facial expressions, and I think podcasts do limit me where like you can't really see my face. And I don't know, I've been told from people that they mostly find it really funny when they see my facial expressions, and it's like I'm very animated when I talk about stuff, so expressing that and displaying that behind a podcast mic is really difficult for me. I wasn't afraid to talk about any of the subjects though. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes so much sense because it means so much to you. So
Yeah.
it's an
It's
easy
like my
thing,
it's
you
like my
know.
everyday life. So I'm just telling you. Yeah, I'm living through it. So like here, let me just talk about it. And I that's how I like to pitch the podcast. It's just kind of me talking through all my thoughts and it makes it less scary. And how that is for my guests from what I hear when they talk about it, they sort of like give name to it and so it's less scary for them.
Yeah, well, obviously I have the podcast, but
Mhm.
what I used to do, well, I do it once in a while still, was when something's bothering me, I record myself talking, but I'll never listen to it. I just record it, and I feel like talking through it makes me feel better because you said like you put a name, like you make this thing quote unquote real.
Mhm.
Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the same as like when people who don't maybe do that, they write in their journal. They might not read it again, but it's like good to get that out. I found it's one of my better, more healthier coping mechanisms rather than doing, a lot of like maybe some harmful mechanisms, going to something like talking about it with another person. But that's the hard part, right? Like talking about it isn't always like the most fun thing.
Yeah, especially if somehow you made a mistake of opening up to someone that not really the best person to open up.
Yeah, I personally don't feel that fear, but I know that my guests feel that fear. And so that's also why I didn't want guests to, because in the first when I was thinking of it, because I didn't want somebody to share something that they felt comfortable in the moment and then regretted it, or maybe they said something that they shouldn't have said. Like I wanted to make sure, but also too, I really wanted to talk to like normal everyday people, not just like because I'm in the mental health space, so I know a lot of people who would be willing to talk about their experiences, but I just wanted people who maybe aren't that accustomed to talking about it.
Yeah, 100%. Offline, you were saying that your dad is Filipino and your mom's Taiwanese, which
Mhm.
pretty much, to be honest, the same because Filipinos are from Taiwan.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, our ancestors from Taiwan.
Oh,
They
okay, okay.
came down and
Mhm.
just populate the Philippines. And is that where the anxiety came from, being a child of immigrants with the
You
pressure?
know, I think there is a lot of unnamed stress and pressure that comes from that. You know what? I think my mom too had me grow up in like sort of like a state of anxiety, and I think you've heard this before too with a lot of immigrants who come to like America, the scarcity mindset.
Yes.
You've heard that. You've heard that all over. And I feel like my parents sort of gave me that, even though I was born here, they gave me that scarcity mindset where like you have to take advantage of all the opportunities because they could be taken away from you like tomorrow. And so I do, and that is very anxiety inducing. I think sometimes like, going through your everyday life with that mindset is not very fun.
No, that's called generational trauma, you know.
Oh yeah.
It passes it on.
Oh yeah.
But yes, scarcity, I call it famine thinking,
Ooh.
which is pretty much the same thing, right? That like you said, like in any time they could take it away from you. Which when I was working through that, for me personally, for my mental health, is I understood why they were like that because there's not much growing up, and if you don't have much, like okay, my mom grew up in a household, her parents, and then seven siblings, and they're not rich at all. Like they're poor, like dirt poor. You know, and sometimes they only have two eggs, and they have to make the eggs flat so it looks like a pizza. So they cut it. So
Yeah.
you always have that feeling like, oh my god, if I'm not at the table, I'm gonna run out.
Yeah. Oh, my dad is also one of seven or or eight, not surprisingly. But again with him too, it almost felt like the sense they were giving me was that they were almost lucky to come here to like America. You know what I mean? Because also he still has some siblings in the Philippines. So it's almost like he has this mindset that, oh, he was one of the lucky ones that was able to like leave and come to America. And so for me, I have that mindset too. Like, I grew up when I was younger, I was always thinking, oh, I didn't get places because I did the work or I was good enough. It's because I was lucky, and that just recently started shifting where I'm like, no, 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 I did that and I am gonna be intentional and not just like I'm the lucky Asian girl who like got an opportunity, you know?
Yeah, I love that. What made the shift? That what helped you shift that mentality?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it was really, when I started working on my mental health, I actually got an Asian therapist for the first time, like ever. And that was transformational because in that we started talking about intergenerational trauma, which is not something I talked about with like my white therapist. And then when we started talking about that, that's when I got into how my parents grew up. And that's when I understood that some of these actions that they were doing were from how they grew up and not because it's the right thing, you know? Mhm.
Was it important for you to find an Asian therapist? Do you think because the person your therapist is Asian, there's more connection, or maybe you could find a quote unquote white therapist that would also understand you?
I think now I see the importance, but when I first got my Asian therapist, it was in 2021. So that's almost 3 years ago. And to be honest, I was going to quit therapy entirely. And I didn't even know I needed an Asian therapist. It's actually really funny. I signed up for a scholarship and I just wanted free therapy.
What?
Yeah, but for through that scholarship, they pair you with an Asian therapist. So I didn't like choose. I just had to do it if I wanted the sessions. And so when I went to the office, I didn't treat my session any different from how I treat my like white therapist. I was just like talking to her, but the way she responded to things and the way that I feel like I was able to just talk through it and not have to explain because like you said too, what makes it different I think a lot of non-culturally responsive therapists, so even anyone outside your culture, right? It doesn't have to just be white therapists. They don't understand the cultural stigmas that are very inherent to certain cultures and your culture. And so it can be really hard when you say things for them not to have questions too, you know? And like
Yeah.
you don't really want your therapist to like be questioning your own things because then they're not actively trying to like help you. They're always being like, oh, that's not like what I would do, you know?
Yeah, so they're more not judging, but like second guessing, perhaps.
Yeah. So like for example, with my white therapist, I have like I'm an eldest daughter of, right? Like my and of three kids. And I have always felt guilt and to be the eldest daughter and take care of my siblings and take care of my parents. And when I would talk to my white therapist, they would always be like, but why? Like you're not responsible for that. No, and that's fair, right? That's true. I'm not responsible. But it's almost like they were like blaming me for not getting it together. And then
Yeah.
my Asian therapist was like, why do you think that?
I love that. Yes,
Mhm.
100%. Yeah, I see. I understand what you're saying about like with the white therapist is you could just walk away from your family. No, no, dude, it doesn't work that way. We don't, we're not, first of all, we're not programmed that way. And it's just,
No.
no, like you see it on Instagram a lot. To say people were saying like, oh, that aunt of yours, you could just like block them. Like you can't really do that.
No, are you kidding me? That's like how it's disrespectful to the culture, their family. And so I always thought then, because of that and what those white therapists would ask me, I would always think there was something wrong with me. I was like, oh, I'm not good enough. So I'm not, I can't do that. Why can't I do that? I thought there was something wrong with me. Whereas I feel like my therapist now who understands, my therapist is the eldest daughter of her family. And so she was able to understand me in a way that I like I can't describe it. Like talking to her is easy and it feels like I'm not blaming myself, which is something that I have a tendency to do.
Yeah, I understand. Especially, coming from an Asian household, the the eldest daughter is like the pressure on them to take care of like, oh, you know that happiness that you think you're thinking right now? No, you don't have time for that. You have to take care of
Yeah.
your youngest siblings, you
Hmm.
know. But I also know that you're a twin.
Yeah.
You have twins. So how old are you compared to
So
your sister?
yeah, we're 14 minutes apart. And I still think of myself as an eldest daughter, even though we are born on the same day. I am older technically, but I moved away from home when I was 18, so left my entire family. Like all of my family lives in New York. My cousins, my siblings, my parents, and I'm the one who moved away. And so I sort of felt that eldest daughter, how the bird leaves the nest, the oldest one. And so that today, even if you told me, I feel like when people tell me I'm a twin, I always forget because I feel way older.
I understand. I mean, 14 minutes, and then you always have this pressure. Because, yes, you are a twin,
Yeah,
that doesn't matter. Like, you are the first one that came out. So, for your parents,
true.
you are the eldest.
Oh, yeah. They treat me like that too. So,
Can I ask why you left the house at 18?
well, yeah. Well, I mean, when I was going to choose a college, I was like, where's the farthest I can go and still like find a good, obviously a scholarship or something like, but where's the furthest I can go? And so it was a really scary thing for me. I actually didn't even want to leave, but I just knew I had to leave. I don't like change. I'm an anxious person, so why would I want to move to a state where I have I know sometimes I look back and I'm like, damn, I really did that.
You did?
I did.
Proud of
And
you.
yeah, and so I moved when I was 18 to Minnesota, somewhere I knew nothing about, but it was for me the furthest I could get from New York and sort of my family at the time.
And how was that?
The first year was rough. I found out that I missed my family a lot, but I think mental health wise, I was able to grow. And now, like if you ask me, like it was the best decision I've made like in my life because I love it here, even 5 years after like that first, 2018. Is it 5 years? Oh no, it's 6 years. Geez. Even six years later, like I'm a completely different person, and I don't think I would have been this person if I stayed.
Yeah. I mean, beautiful flowers, beautiful plants does not become beautiful if they don't feel pressure or heat or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Hmm.
How proud are you that you did that move?
I mean, it's to this day one of the like hardest things. And I am like just so proud. I'm proud that I like listened to my gut, which not a lot of people do. It's
Especially
hard.
from an anxious person, it's hard to listen to your
Oh,
gut.
it is hard. Your mind will tell you everything that you need to hear in order to not believe in yourself. But I also knew too that if I did move, I also thought too, like there's always transferring schools. So if it didn't work out, I had that kind of safety because that's actually very common, I feel like now more than ever before. So I kind of did think that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna give myself 1 year, and if it doesn't work out, I'll go home.
And what stopped you from pressing that safety button?
The first year here, it was rough for a few months, but then it got better. I also met my partner in first year in the first 2 months, who I'm still with. So it's been 6 years, and who I see as like my life partner. And everything like changed for me too. Like mental health wise, I think I learned a lot about myself. I also like spent a lot of time alone, which I couldn't do because my household, as our households are, they're very rowdy and loud. And, I lived near my grandparents. So like it was their family too. And then I shared a room with my sister. So,
You're in Minnesota now, and
Mhm.
obviously Minnesota has four seasons.
Oh, yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you suffer from SAD?
Um, I do in the our winters here are also really long, but I mean, you're in, yeah, you where you
Montreal,
are. Yeah,
we got it bad.
oh yeah, so we're the same. The winters are long here. I personally love the cold. So I don't think sad is for me. Well, I guess sad, it technically is about like seasonal, but I don't think I get affected by seasons. I think more it's like life transitions and like what's going on.
Yeah, and I see that, and also I see that you're active. You go out when it's even when it's winter.
Oh my, I love like skiing, snowboarding, sledding.
Not
Yeah.
me.
And I
I'm good.
yeah, well, I don't blame you. I feel like a lot of people I've met too are like that. I think maybe it's just me being like, oh, climate change. So you got to appreciate what we have. It makes me more appreciative for sure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, I hate the cold.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
But it's been. I had a conversation with a Canadian about it, and he's like, "You cannot appreciate winter if you stay inside the house all the time. So you have to stay active." So I made sure the moment I had the conversation, I made sure that, okay, I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna go walk for 5 kilometers every weekend or whenever I
Mhm.
can, and just try appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, it did help. I still don't go for snowboarding and whatever like that.
Yeah.
But I'm. It's just more of my knees. I don't want to mess up with my knees.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, same here. I think when it was blizzarding one day, I just walked outside, like put my snow pants on and we just walked. We didn't have to do anything because I think too, when you see the seasons, and I don't know about you guys, but here we had a very mild winter. It was not really that cold at all. And that actually made me sad. Like it made me scared. It made me a little scared because again, I came here in 2018 when it was negative something degrees. Well,
Yeah.
Fahrenheit.
I understand, like, global warming. You know
Yeah,
what, dude? I'm like, yeah, global warming. What are you gonna do?
I
Like,
know.
you
Yeah,
gotta live your
yeah.
life.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Go in the road and just hold a placard and say global warming, stop it? I'm like,
You forget I have anxiety.
yeah, I don't have time for that, man. I
Yeah.
do my part, enjoy life. That's
Yeah.
that.
hmm
Did you used to suffer from panic attacks?
I still do. And you know what? It was actually worse in New York. I think in New York, though, because I didn't really get the proper treatment, but also in New York, it's way more populated. It's so crowded. And that is actually a lot of what my triggers are. It's like claustrophobia related and people, and it's sensory. So you can imagine in New York, it was just like terrible. The amount of like panic attacks I've had, like in the city on the subway, it's disgusting. Yeah, it's. Uh-huh.
When the first time it happened, I'm gonna guess you didn't know what was happening, if it was panic attack or not.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anybody really does or expects it. And at that time, I think I was pretty young. I was in high school. Um, and I also suffered from something called vasovagal, and it's when you actually faint.
Oh boy.
Yes, do. So when I would have panic attacks, I would like pass out. Like I wouldn't just have a panic attack. Like I would lights out for like a few seconds and then come back. Yeah. So it was to a point where it was like dangerous and I had to get like a bunch of doctor's checkups. And as you can tell, when I got the doctor's appointments, like did MRIs, whatever, guess what? They found nothing.
Yeah,
There's nothing
because it's
wrong.
it's magic.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
she's just she just need rest.
Yeah, yeah. Medically, like physically, no, like you're not gonna find anxiety on the scans.
Yeah, that's the power of the brain.
Yeah,
you
isn't
know?
that crazy? Like I still look back at that and I'm like, how did that actually make me like pass out like on the floor to the point where like the doctors are like literally, yeah, what's and they always said the same, yeah, like are you drinking water?
Yeah, the easiest. Drinking water, avoid the sun,
Yeah.
over fatigued. Okay,
Hmm.
coming from a immigrant household
Yeah.
and mental health, you know how amazing they mix. They
Oh
don't at all.
no.
Oil and
No.
water. How did you explain it to mom and dad, or did you really have to explain it to them, or not at all?
I that's a tough one. I think that's really an important question. I think it can be again from that scarcity mindset and because I don't think they're I think immigrating is such a huge change, a transition that I think it alters your brain a little bit. And so the things that they experienced, again, I can never come to understand. But in that same way, I think they can fundamentally not understand me. You know what I mean? And I think I give them that leeway too. I think a part of immigrating and I think sort of my parents' experience personally is again that they can't really focus on their mental health, right? Well, because of that scarcity mind, that because there's so much at stake for them. And so it was really never a conversation they were prepared to have. Neither do I think they understand it like fundamentally, like the definition, like what is anxiety, what is depression, what is a panic attack, right? When that was going on with my health, and when I was fainting and doing all that, my parents were really concerned, but almost to the point, and again, this is not their fault, and I see it now, almost to the point where they were blaming me for what was happening because they were saying I wasn't eating enough or like, this is why I told you to take care of your health. And I didn't know like what to do with that when I was younger.
And now,
Now I understand like why they said that and why, and actually for them, it's like, it's their way of loving, like why don't you like take care of yourself? I love you so much. Don't harm yourself, you know?
they'll
It's
give you
so
food, make you
yeah,
fat, and then call you fat.
yeah, and then no, literally, and they'll like my parents would buy me extra things to help with my health, like Chinese herbs or like other things like that are not superstition, but like that they think would help when it had nothing to do with that. They will go through lengths and obstacles to find any other excuse other than like mental health or mental illness, you know?
Yeah, because I think, like you said earlier, like they can't understand it. Like their brain is not capable of understanding. It's like explain algebra to me. I'm like, yo, no, that's not gonna
No,
happen.
me
All right,
neither.
it's not gonna happen. I'm sorry. It's just yes, it does make sense. It does things. I get it, but I don't understand it.
Yeah, we're not that type of Asian.
Yeah, yeah, we're on the other side. We're the creative ones.
We're the singers.
You said your dad's Filipino. Do you know where he from?
I'm pretty sure he said Manila.
Everyone's from Manila.
I know. Well, like, I mean, yeah, and then America, it's like the pipeline.
Yeah, they always. I figured that out easy quickly. Like, is where are you from? Manila. I'm like, no one's from Manila. No one is from Manila. No one.
Yeah, and funnily enough, I think too, because having two parents who immigrated from different places, I I have had more, I think, experience with my mom's side and her culture rather than my dad's. Like, I'm sort of ashamed to say that I don't really know much at all about Filipino culture or not have connected with it. And I think naturally that's because I grew up in a more of a Chinese household, because my mom sort of wore the pants in the relationship. It was like very traditional Chinese. And so I didn't really get any of that unless my like Filipino grandmother, she would be making like Filipino food, right? And I would go to her house sometimes and like eat that and talk to her and she'd be speaking Tagalog. Um and my dad is speaks Tagalog as well. Actually, my mom does too. Um so yeah, I didn't really have a side of that culture at all. So I whenever people ask, I'm always just like I'm Chinese.
Yeah, I'm Chinese. I mean, it's the easiest answer, right?
It is, yeah, like
Also, okay, I like that you touch on this. You saying that mom had wore the pants in the house. I love the culture because a Filipino household is not really. There are gender roles, yes, but it's a gender role that makes sense. It's like men will fix the light bulbs, I guess. I don't know. Like, that's not really a woman thing, they'll do something else. Also, Filipino culture is, I would say, I'm to be honest, like, and I'm not being trying to champion my. I am championing my culture, but I'm
Yeah.
but I'm not trying to. I forgot the word. Like, I'm not saying that. Oh, we're the coolest, but we don't have men and women. We look at the same
Yeah.
because in the household, in the Filipino culture, the men are called husband are called the the foundation of the house, and the women are the light of the house.
I love that. Yeah.
So you see the hard and the softness, but they're all equal. There's no difference. But in your household, when you said mom wear the pants, did dad like make any decision at all, or just mom 100%?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think my mom definitely did. Again, I think she comes from a very traditional household, so there are very specific ways, right, of that she wants things done and how we grew up. And my dad, like you said, I think didn't I think they were grappling with their own kind of ideas too of like, oh, we're in America now. Like, what do we have to do to be more American? And so I think they both kind of shed off those roles, except for I think my mom. My mom has always been very cultural and traditional, where my dad, I think he let go of some of that. He's so I think that's what came into play. And that's why I think my mom was a little bit more like dominant in the household, is because she kept the tradition and he was like, I'm fine with whatever.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty and negative of being a Filipino. We're very
Mm,
flexible. We're
yeah.
very adaptable because how many cultures have come to the islands and just mixed with us, and we're like, cool. This is the new thing. We'll do it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
In good and bad.
exactly. So dad's Filipino, mom's Taiwanese, mixed culture. How did that affect you growing up?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I think in the household too itself, there was always a lot of languages going around, and my dad did speak Tagalog a lot, and I grew up around my dad and his family because my cousins are from there. Because the 7 to 8 siblings, you literally have cousins all around the world, and with my grandma too, and they would speak Tagalog all the time, but I was only learning Mandarin. And I always kind of like was very curious about that. I'm like, why am I going to school for Mandarin for like Chinese school? But like, what about this other language that I'm hearing? Like, I'm not learning that? And so I always question that. And I still actually don't have an answer to that of like why my dad never felt like inspired to teach us about his culture, or I don't know, even like suggest like we go to like or just like visit or really see any family. Because I still have family in the Philippines, but like we don't talk to them at all. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be politics.
Could be.
Family politics. So going back to you, what are the tools that you use to help alleviate your anxiety?
Yeah, I think like now or like back then.
Now.
Yeah. I think I use a lot of tools. I think I am lucky enough to understand my anxiety a lot more. I say it's a love-hate relationship, but back then I was all hate and now I am mostly love. Not all, but most. And so that helps first, seeing yourself as not someone, not hating yourself and not being angry at yourself for it. I feel like there was a long period of forgiving myself, which is a really hard thing to do. Because like if you think about it, and someone said this to me recently, like, well, I said this to someone, like, would you talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself? Probably not. You know what I mean? And that's a really big thing to hear because you're like, oh yeah, that's actually embarrassing. Like, oh wow, like you can't even like admit to someone that you would not talk to them the way, or it wouldn't be acceptable, right? Like if you talk to someone the way you talk to yourself, it would not be acceptable. They would not be your friend. So why do you think it's okay to talk to yourself like that? You know?
Yeah, it challenged you though, give you some fire.
Yeah, it challenges. Yeah. And I think too, doing my podcast, right? Like starting mental health advocacy, like I get to do so many like cool things. Like next week, I'm going to a mental health conference. I'm going to NamiCon to speak about mental health. Like it's so helpful to speak about it and then, meeting people who are the same. And I feel like the more people you meet, the more you realize is that you're not special.
Yeah,
And
no one's
yeah,
special, to be
no,
honest.
I know one's special, but when you do experience anxiety, it's such an isolating thing that sometimes, you do think you're like special. You think you're the only one that experiences it. And just the more people you know, it gets harder and harder to do that?
Why is it so important for you to, talk about anxiety and mental health?
I think because I didn't have those conversations growing up. My parents didn't have those conversations with me, and so I maybe it is the eldest daughter in me. I call myself like when talk on my YouTube channel, whatever, like sort of the big sister of like mental health, and it's because I was an oldest daughter and my parents weren't really there for me in that way, and so I had to learn everything myself, and it's really hard. And I'm lucky, right? I have the tools. I was able to leave my home at 18 to go to college in a different state. I also had access to, I was doing social media. So naturally, when you talk on social media, you meet people, like whether you like it or not, like how we met? Um, yeah, you meet people. So I was very, very lucky. But can you imagine the people who are not as lucky? Like how will they ever get the help that they need? So I think that's what really like motivates me to like talk about it.
How much do you think social media adds to your anxiety or helps your anxiety?
Ooh, okay, yeah, that social media is a big one for me. I started social media very early at the age of 15, and I had a really bad relationship to it back then, but it was just years of sort of working through that and again going to therapy and taking a lot of breaks where I'm at a point now that I have a very healthy relationship to it, so much so that like I work in social media. And that's a big step for me, like realizing that I wanted to work in social media because I was able to handle it is a big thing for me to like admit, right?
Yeah. Okay. Journaling is one of the best ways to help anxiety,
Hmm.
working out. Do you work out, by the way?
Oh my God, active. I have so many sports, so many
What do you
hobbies.
play?
I play tennis, I run, I do figure skating. I'm doing figure skating classes now. So that's also something I learned too is working out or finding things that aren't, I think where a lot of stress comes from is also our performance. Like think about where the stressors of your life comes from, right? I
My
mean, most
kids.
but most people will say work, right? Okay, before kids, like where does that come from? Work.
Yeah,
And
probably
so
work. Yeah.
yeah, and so I learned how to do things and not tie that to my performance. And that actually alleviates some of the anxiety and the stress because you can't be doing things in life that just contributes to stress. That's not like helping it. And so I found like hobbies that I don't really have to like worry about my performance for.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's 100%. I do love sport. I do love hobbies. I think I
Yeah.
saw some of your posts that you collect hobbies.
Oh, I love talking about hobbies. Yeah.
Me too. Is it like I make art,
Hmm.
I read books, I cycle, I lift weights, other things like that.
Yeah.
What's your opinion, or how would you retort to people that say, "Oh, you have so much hobbies, but you're not a master of one thing"?
Ooh, that's something I had trouble with when I was younger. But if we think about why we feel like we have to be number one at something, it's because of the rhetoric on social media or society, right? Like if we all just like imagine if we literally like lived on a farm, like no connection to the outside world, would we feel the pressure? No. Literally no, because one, who's watching? Two, like who are we trying to impress? Like you think about all those factors. And so when I first thought of that, I was like, oh yeah, it's literally society telling me. And there's one thing that I don't like doing because I'm the eldest daughter and a rebel is listening to people. So when society tells me that I need to be good at something in order to enjoy it, I don't listen to them. And
Yeah,
that's the first step in realizing that.
100%. Which one's your favorite activity or hobby right now? Don't say reading, because that's like your base.
No, I know, no, I don't even read that much anymore. And I think figure skating, I just got into it, so into it that I signed up for Academy. I don't know what I'm doing. I know I should. It was really expensive. And but like I just got obsessed one day because again, I live in Minnesota and all you can do here in the winter is like skate, ski, or be inside. And so I just started skating and then I was like, no, I want to learn how to like jump and do all the fun things. So I started taking classes a few months ago and I'm like obsessed with it.
Love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Don't you love that you found something new? I'm like,
Right?
oh my God, this is my new thing. I'm gonna try to be good at this thing.
Yeah, so we call it's hyperfixation hobbies. And so me knowing that like maybe in a few months or maybe even a years, I probably won't be that interested as much as I am now, but it's fun now and I'm just going to enjoy it until I find my next thing, you know?
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm enjoying now. Isn't it like the idea is to have fun at something? You're not
Exactly.
gonna go to the Olympics. Hello.
I mean,
All
who
right.
knows? Who knows?
Oh no, I know you're not going. There's like 13-year-old Russian
I
doing
know.
practicing every day.
You know, I'm actually, this is so funny you're talking. I'm working on a YouTube video about this too, about accomplishment and how what that has to do with age and how our media portrays it. Because that's so interesting that you say that. I know, right? But and you know, as a social experiment, I should probably try to go to the Olympics.
Hey, girl, if you make it, I'll be like, yes, let's get it.
Social experiment. I will do it.
Yeah, like I said to you earlier, I cycle, right?
Hmm.
And I do cycle. Like I go 100 kilometers.
How many miles is that?
So American.
I
Why do you have to be American?
I was
Okay,
like,
I'm not good with math. We talk about this. All right, here, let me check it out for the sake of the
no,
people.
but it's 100. It's easy to convert.
Hello, I told you I'm not good with math. Okay, it's 62 miles.
Oh, damn, that's a lot. No, that's more than a marathon.
Sure, yeah, why
Jeez.
not? But and that's like average. I go more than that. Like this month, May, I have cycled 717 kilometers, like total.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gee.
So, but again, I practice. I work on my skills. I'm not going to Tour de France. I can guarantee you right now.
Well, aren't a lot of those people older anyway? I
No,
don't think,
they're young. They're like
really?
20s. Yeah, yeah, they're young.
Oh, true. But again, see, why do we feel like we can't do things? Ah, that's what my video is gonna be about.
I like it, but I love this video. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it's time. I don't have time to
True.
practice. To be honest, it's a possibility. I'm not telling you you're not gonna make it. No, don't let me
Yeah.
say that. But like, it's just time. You have to put in time. Do you have time? Are you willing to put in time? Because man, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. So that yeah, I also talk about in the video too, how does privilege play into that, right? People who can, right, who maybe don't work, of course they can probably become Olympic people more than we can,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Actually, I was just talking about the privilege and cycling over my
Wow, yeah.
last episode. That's I'm so every time I cycle, I feel so grateful because I
Oh, I
feel so
know.
privileged because this is a lot of time. Did you
Yeah.
have problem growing up appreciating privilege yourself?
Yeah. I do think I'm very privileged and I don't think I ever had a problem with acknowledging it too. I think there's a lot of people who will like it like rubs me wrong. They'll like say they're not privileged, and then you'll like see that either the things they have, the way they grew up, where they grew up, and you'll be like, you have to admit, come on, you can't even admit that you have like some. And they're like, no, like I am very privileged, and I think to my parents when they immigrated here too, they were really privileged to find such amazing jobs off the bat too, because we talk about that all the time where my parents have worked in their places for the since they immigrated
Wow,
and
what do they
now.
do?
I don't really know. Well, I don't know. I don't know the technicality. It's like weird because like we don't really talk. They don't talk about work. It's weird.
No, they
Like I
don't.
talk about my job. I won't shut up about it, but like they don't. they don't talk about what they do because they don't really think they're not passionate about it, right? Like I feel like that's a very big thing too when you immigrate is like it might not be your passion job, but you're gonna do what you have to do to make ends
Yeah.
meet. Yeah.
That's a Western idea, by the way. The idea
It
of like
is.
your
Yeah.
job has to be your passion. It doesn't have to be, dude.
No, and now, honestly, even though I work in the industry that I want to be in, I don't like my job isn't my passion. Like, are you kidding? Like, it's not, I don't find purpose at work. I do my job and I do it well, and then I leave, and then I do the things that I love, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my parents were really privileged to find good opportunities and then settle in a good place, in New York, where a lot of things were coming up and happening, right? In the early 2000s. And then I was born into that from their privilege. So it didn't even just start with me. It started with them and having the opportunities they did. And so now I've grown up to like where I am today.
I love that. I love that. But yeah, just going back to the people that say, I don't have privilege. You should ask them, like, are you in the United States or are you in Kenya?
Yeah, that's too, even it's, yeah, the US is like, a
That's
privilege.
number one. Like, you so lucky for some reason, whoever, like, universe or whatever you believe in, you end up in the States,
Yeah.
in the part of a land of the world that actually good to live.
Yeah, I think I learned too that as I got older, privilege isn't just like, oh, like you have a lot of clothes or like you have a lot of, are you rich or whatever. It's not about that. Privilege is literally every right privilege of what we say of your skin color. Do you have the privilege to be, I think we talk about this too, and I know in a lot of Asian cultures, right? Are you privileged enough to be a lighter skinned Asian, which I am. And because of that, that changes a lot of like, interactions, like how I go about life, right? Like it's different from how a darker skin Asian, well, sort of a little bit, I get a little bit darker in the summer, but how that reacts, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. Like, if you and I go back to the Philippines, let's visit the Philippines. It's gonna be you, the VIP. I'll be like, oh,
Oh,
this guy,
yeah.
get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause it's part of it. It's like invisible privilege.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to think about it, just automatics. You know?
Yeah. And that's why some people don't know that they have privilege because they don't see it or they didn't really know that they benefit from it.
Yeah. I want to ask you, how do you navigate social situations or events that could create anxiety?
Oh, that's such a good question. I have social anxiety, and this has been sort of just like a part of my whole like diagnosis of like trying to figure out where my anxiety comes from. So I do have social anxiety in social situations. One thing I will say though is that I didn't realize how, one, it is really exhausting, but I didn't realize how much of that could be mitigated even before the event starts. There's a lot of stuff that is in your control actually, and I think a lot of the reason why I get anxious is because there's a lot of unknowns in situations. I think not only the talking to people and like what are they going to say, what are they going to ask me, am I going to say something good back? It's like, where am I parking, right? What's the weather going to be? What time is it going to be dark by the time I leave? All of those things were in my control. Like I could find out all this information. So I think doing that now, I don't know if you've seen memes. I'm that one friend that like when you go to dinner with me, I look at the menu before we go to dinner so that when I'm there, I'm not taking up too much time and figuring out what to do. But that all helps me because when I'm there, it's just an ease experience. All I do is focus on the person in front of me or the people and have a good conversation because my anxiety never used to let me do that. When I would go out with people, I and to be honest, I was like lazy about it. I didn't really do my research or didn't really know like where we're going. And I think that helps too. A lot of my friends, what they do, they don't tell me where we're going until like 30 minutes. And I am like, that's unacceptable. I say that. And I think a lot of people are embarrassed, right? Because they don't want to be like, oh, too annoying. But I'm like, hey guys, like it would just be really helpful if we all came up with a place we're going to the night before. And that's not too much to ask. And they'll do that for me because like they care about me. And so that really helped as well.
Yeah, I like what you said that you have to prepare, you have to be
Hmm.
vocal. Because some people are afraid to be vocal and say, hey, this is my boundary. This is how I play. Are you okay with this? Yes or no?
Hmm.
You know, not being a people pleaser. Were you ever a people pleaser or?
And sometimes a people pleaser, I don't think inherently, I think a part of people pleasing came from my anxiety. So it's a circular situation. Like I'm a people pleaser because I think people will be annoyed by my anxiety and they won't want to hang out with me anymore. So I just do what they tell me to do. So, and it's a cycle, right? And I think once you break the cycle, you find out that it's one, not really annoying to people because you're actually helping them pick a restaurant faster than they probably didn't even know where they're going and they didn't want to look it up. So you're like, hey, I'm going to do the research, right? And then two is this, it's much less exhausting for you to live authentically rather than try to always please other people. Because one thing I learned too is you will never please anyone. So like, why would you try so hard to do something that you can never achieve in the first
Yeah,
place? You
100%. For the
know?
believers, for the faithful, I always say,
Mhm.
if Jesus has haters, who do you think you are?
Yeah. Like yeah, it's literally impossible as hard as that is to say, right?
Yeah, no. Like, of course, growing up, I had friends, and I want to please them,
Yeah.
but I've been lucky to have that voice in my head that says, "Hey, be yourself, and don't try to be pleasing people." So, and I was okay being alone anyway. I
Hmm.
think that helped a lot because if you're
Hmm.
an extrovert, that will tend to make you more people pleaser.
Yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? If you're comfortable alone, like cool. They don't want to go to the restaurant. I'm cool too. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know. You mentioned that you have a twin. Does she have anxiety?
I have realized now that we are very different in that space. I think I definitely grew up with more anxiety. I don't want to say she has none or she doesn't have mental health like issues. Like I dealt with depression when I was younger too, and I think that we just dealt with it at our own pace. She could have been struggling, but I didn't know. And same here to me. I think when I was struggling, she wouldn't really know because I wouldn't tell her, right? She would just see like me couldn't get out of bed. I would like skip school and she'd just be like, "Oh, she's not feeling well."
Or
Because that's
pass
what I would
out?
say. Yeah, yeah. No, I would pass out at school. So like why would I want to go to school? I would rather do that at home. Let me pass out in my bed.
Wait, this has it ever happened? Like you pass out, you hit your head on the concrete?
So I was at I don't want to call it a party. It was just like at a thing at a school club or whatever. And I passed out and they called the ambulance.
Oh boy.
But then I woke up and I was like, why is everyone around me? But yeah, I don't think I fell too hard, but once I felt, I knew early on, I started understanding the triggers. So when I lose my vision first. So
Nice.
yeah, I know, fun, right? So when you lose your vision, they tell you what to do when you feel that. So I got control of it a lot quicker.
That's how amazing the human brain is.
Yeah,
Like
it's
it learned like, oh, this thing is gonna happen. We need to do something.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. But I think too, another thing is a lot of people just are in denial. I think for the first 10 times that I did it, I didn't do anything. Like I was just like, what is happening? Oh, it's coming again. Let me just let me just do it. And then I was like, oh wait, I actually have to do something like about this. Like it's really not safe. No, I think that was the turning point when they called the ambulance when I had fainted in front of everyone. It was the turning point that this is actually dangerous. And also one, I can't be getting the ambulance called on all the time because it's really expensive.
Do you
Yeah.
think? Oh yeah, you're American. It's free here, by the way.
I I hate you.
But I mean, Minnesota is like almost Canada, but no healthcare.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But okay, I was gonna say, oh man,
Let me just faint on the border.
yeah. do you think? Do you think? Did you feel shame when it happened at
Oh,
school?
s- yeah. I don't know how deep you want to get, but I that was when I think that was the worst time in my life because I was doing some very unhealthy coping mechanisms like self-harm and all of that. Yeah,
Cutting?
yeah. So like
Boy.
getting, I know, so and like, suicidal ideation because again, right, you have the mixture of I was doing these behaviors, I was fainting, and then I went to the doctor and I thought they were gonna fix me. I thought they were gonna magically fix me, and I was so happy. And then they said they didn't find anything or couldn't do anything. So just imagine the hopelessness you feel in that situation, where some days you could literally be, and I think the most place where I fainted was on my school bus on the way to school. So can you imagine the fear, just the absolute darkness that you're in, just like passing out and then waking up and then not really knowing what the heck happened? And thank God my sister was on that bus with me every morning. And so when I would do it, she would tell me to lean on her thing. So it just looked like I was sleeping. But can you imagine the shame that I felt when I would do that in front of people or in front of my class and just like feel absolutely horrible? And so during that time, I blamed myself for it because nobody could figure out what happened, but only I was doing it, you know?
Yeah. So it must be used the problem.
That's what I'm saying. Like I was like,
Yeah.
nobody has done this before. Why is nobody helping me figure out? The doctor said I'm okay, so it's probably just in my brain and I'm the one causing it. So that churned into shame and like hatred for myself because thought that I there was a point where I thought like if I'm doing this, like I would rather not be like alive, right? Because why would I want to live such a painful existence of like of passing out like randomly, you know?
Yeah. Understand.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, or I mentioned that you were cutting.
Yeah.
Was that the worst thing that you've done to
I
hurt yourself?
think oh yeah, I think there were times I think that was definitely the worst physical thing. I think mentally though, I wouldn't go to school or I wouldn't like eat sometimes, or I would like, and I regret this, but just like I would be really mean to my parents because I didn't really want to talk to them, but they always kind of wanted to talk to me and was like, what's wrong? And like, I never really wanted to talk about it. And so I think physically, yes, but mentally, I didn't find the motivation. And like you said, right? Like now we can talk about all the things that we love and that we're privileged to do. And I didn't even, can you believe there's a time that I didn't even feel like doing any of those things or even like finding them? So yeah, I think both physically and mentally, yeah, it was hard.
I don't pass out. I my mind goes numb.
Yeah, that's scary too, though.
That's what I get. I'm like, oh Jesus, oh Jesus. And then, but however, thankfully for reading, researching, self healing, therapy, I understand. Like, okay, I know what's happening here.
Yeah, yeah.
And it helps a lot.
True, true,
You know,
true.
but yeah, anyway. So what I was saying was like, I didn't plan this. Obviously, I came here. I studied
Mhm.
myself. I helped myself, and like I decided I'm the one who's gonna break that trauma, that generational trauma.
Yeah.
Not that I'm perfect or anything with my kids,
Mhm.
but I decide that. Are you planning to have kids someday, or
I mean, I can't really afford them, so maybe not.
oh, no one can afford them, trust me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But what I'm getting at is,
Yeah.
I decided to be the chain breaker.
Yes,
Do
I
you think
love that.
you're the chain breaker for your family?
Oh, I definitely think I am. I think I'm the chain breaker, not even in my own families right now. I just have a lot of people that I like talk to, and again, I'm actively helping and like passionate about helping because like I said, I think when you experience something as traumatizing and as just painful as that, you start to just develop, I don't know, you become more compassionate, but not only for yourself, but you're just like, I don't want anyone else to feel like this. Like I felt so lost. And you know what would have actually helped at that time? If someone would have just like asked me, like, or told me, like, hey, like, are you like stressed out or are you feeling a lot of anxiety? Maybe that could be. If literally someone would have told me that, I can't imagine that maybe at the 10 times I fainted, I would have known by like the fifth time and would have been able to get help because what would have helped was therapy during that time when I was feeling so much stress that it was causing me to like pass out. I could have easily gone to therapy or started journaling or like doing these breathing exercises, but then I didn't even know it was related to mental health. So what was I doing? Drinking water, eating pretzels.
Of
No, I
course.
was I was tackling the issue with the wrong
Yeah, but
solutions.
you don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's like,
It's not your fault. You're young. So
yeah.
you're saying that. So let's say time travel at that moment, there's a person that went up to you and say, "Are you okay? Do you need help or whatever?" Do you think you would listen? Do you think like, yes, there's something wrong with me. Can you please help me? Or you be like, no, leave me alone.
I think at that point, I was desperate for any answer, any explanation. And you have to have realized we went through all of the resources we could have gone to, all the tests. I even did an MRI scan, like the most expensive, like so expensive to do a freaking MRI scan for nothing. And then, but I think if someone would have just told me something, I would have listened. And I think too is I was waiting for someone to ask me. Again, when I went to my parents about my mental health issues, they sort of brushed it off or said those things, maybe said some hurtful things sometimes. And again, I don't blame them because I said hurtful things to them too, right? And so that didn't really help because it felt like if I had something wrong or if I wanted to talk about my anxiety or what I thought it was anxiety at the time, they wouldn't listen. So I took that as like nobody would listen because I'm like, even my own parents don't really want to hear me talk about it. I don't think anyone wants to hear it, you know?
100%. Do you
Mhm.
have a message to that little girl?
I don't know. I think too that I would have liked to tell my younger self that like it's not her fault. I think everything else sort of like happened as it happened. We can't go back in time, but I think I would take back that sort of blaming myself because one thing about self-harm and tendencies like that is it's addicting. It's addictive.
Yeah, because
And
when you
those
hurt yourself, your brain creates that.
you're and I didn't realize at the time like okay, I can't imagine in how deep in the mindset you have to be like this is okay. Right? No, seriously, it's like it's scary.
Trust me,
You're like,
I laugh at the
I
darkest
know, no,
thing.
no, I me too, me too. But like there was a time in my life where I thought that was okay. Like as okay as like
This is good. This is
yeah,
normal.
as okay as like any normal thing. And then your brain makes that connection. And so actually I remember too, and I wrote this in my journal actually, and I still read my journal because it's really nice to read actually how I used to be. I wrote in my journal that it was only one time. I was like, no, I'm only gonna do it once and I won't do it again. And I wrote that in my journal. And to see that wasn't the case is so scary.
Yeah, you got addicted to it.
Yeah. So it was,
Yeah. Were you showing the lacerations to the cuts to other people, or just you hide them?
I don't think anybody really like purposely does. I actually have a tattoo on some on my leg. So it actually a lot of that's very common I heard to like get cover-ups, like tattoos. Um but I my not my parents, but like my sister, and so this is one of the things that I regret doing when I was younger is like my sister knew about them, but it was really bad, and I regret this, and I'm so ashamed of this. Is she would not tell my parents because I would say that I would like harm myself more if she told
Oh
anyone.
my
I
god.
know. I know. And I look back at that and I think too of how much I probably harmed my sister by doing that, right? Like what was she gonna do? Like I put her in such a tough position,
Yeah.
but I think it's important to talk about because there is a lot of trauma there. And still, even to this day, where I talk about with my sister, like we have such a deeper bond and relationship because I apologize for my actions. And now she understands why I did that, you know?
Yeah. So she has forgiven you.
Yeah, she has forgiven me, but also to like understood where that came from instead of just being like very dismissive of it and like calling me like names of like you're crazy, you're like whatever, you know? And I think at that time too, like she was just scared. I don't think she was like mad or anything. She was just like the word that I was using is like fearful.
Dude, I'd be like scared too. Like I see a person that I loved cutting herself. Like, yo,
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on here?
No, I know. It's and that's what I'm saying too, right? Like now I look back and I'm like, what if I was in that position?
Yeah.
I don't know what I would do. Yeah.
What would I do? I, I think I'll tell. I can
That's what
help.
I'm saying. Like I can't speak for her, and I think obviously the decision that we made ended up to us being here. Like thankfully we're both okay, but it's important to acknowledge those things, right? And not just be like, yeah, not just be like, whoa, that was a childhood.
That was crazy.
Yeah,
Remember
like that was
that?
yeah, remember when I did that? No, it's like I'm like you have to apologize, you know?
Yeah, that's the most important thing. First of all, the most important thing is forgive yourself and then ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, I think that comes first. Like forgiving yourself. I think two people don't realize, and I learned this too while talking to a lot of therapists, is that a lot of anxiety and, depression are things that are out of our control. They are like a chemical imbalance, like in our brains, sometimes outside factors, maybe social media causing it. And so when we blame ourselves, it doesn't even help the situation, like at all, you know?
100%.
Mhm.
Listen, Alex, this has been such an
Mhm.
amazing conversation. I really appreciate it. You're amazing. You're awesome. Before we close out, one last question.
Mhm.
Do you have any advice for someone currently experiencing anxiety?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, you should listen to my podcasts. You might find one of your anxieties on there. I also am inviting guests for season 2. I already have some people, but I would love to talk to again anyone who feel like they need an outlet to talk about it. And I think too is just trusting yourself and believing in yourself is like the best thing that you can do. Like right now, today.
Great, great message. Thank you so much, Alex. I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you again, Alex, for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, listeners, for listening. This is Aaron Del Yosa for An Immigrant's Life. I'll see you guys later.